There's no indication that the leading edges have retracted. There's no stick shaker. There wouldn't even be much buffeting because the leading edges on the inboard side of the engine are still extended, which means that the stall is happening further out on the wing, so it's unlikely that it would buffet much. And when I read this, I felt so sorry for the pilots because they are doing everything right here. First officer has put the correct amount of rudder in, he has rotated nice and smoothly, he's maintaining the track, and he is pitching to maintain V2 speed, which is what he's been trained to do. And still, this aircraft is stalling. If the stall warning system would have worked, well then it's very likely that he, just like any other pilot out there who hears a stall warning, would have pushed the nose forward in order to increase the speed above the stall warning, and that would have led the speed up above 159 knots, where the wing wouldn't be stalled, and it's likely that they could have gotten out of this situation. When this was reproduced in the flight simulator, all of the crews that did get this stall warning actually did manage to control this aircraft. But this crew had no indication whatsoever that this was what's happening to them, and this is what led up to this accident. 3 seconds before this aircraft impacts with the ground, the aircraft is in a left-hand roll of 112 degrees and a pitch down of 21 degrees. And a very famous photo was taken from an airport parking lot. And this photo was actually used by the investigation later on in order to determine whether or not the leading edge slats were in or out on the left-hand side, because the damage to the electrical system caused by the engine separation actually also took away some of the parameters from the flight data recorder, including the slat position. Only 50 seconds after the start of this flight, American Airlines flight 191 crashes into a field 1.4 kilometers beyond the threshold of runway 32 right. All 271 persons on board perish in the accident, making it the worst single aircraft accident on American soil to date. As the aircraft impacts, it is so violent that it completely destroys the aircraft, and the debris is thrown into and destroys an old aircraft hangar, several cars, a mobile home, and it kills 2 more people on the ground. The National Transportation Safety Board investigation starts immediately, and they have 2 main questions that they need answered. 1. Why did the engine detach from the left-hand wing? And 2, why were the pilots not able to control the aircraft after the engine failure occurred? They immediately find what's left of the number 1 engine, which is lying on the side of runway 32 right, and they start to look into what part of the engine is still attached to it. Very quickly, they start finding traces of this damage to the aft attachment point of the pylon. And initially, they issue a grounding of the DC-10. Remember, they have no idea that this has to do with a maintenance procedure at this point. They trace the aircraft back to when they did their C-check. They start looking further into this procedure, and they realize that this has happened not only in American Airlines, but also in Continental Airlines. Interestingly though, not in United, who was using this different crane procedure. All of the DC-10s that had undergone this engine replacement procedure was thoroughly scrutinized. In the investigation, they found a further 6 DC-10s that also had very similar cracks that had started to develop in the aft attachment point of the pylon. Once it was established that it was a maintenance procedure that had caused these damages and not the manufacturing, the DC-10 was let back into the air. But its reputation at this point was forever tarnished. This, together with another couple of accidents that happened earlier on, would mean that the general public never really regained any confidence in this aircraft. When it came to the way that the pilots had performed during this flight, the investigators used simulator trials where they let other crews do that flight again under different circumstances, both with and without stall warning. And this, together with the flight data recorder and what they had learned from the accident site, proved that the pilots had performed really well. They had done exactly what was expected from them. No one could have expected them to do anything more than what they actually did. This was an absolutely terrible accident, but as we always do in the aviation business, we use these accidents to